Right, I'm chiming in. That's right. That's right. I'm chiming in. I'm coming in. I've had enough of all this nonsense. Attacking John Cleese, one of the greatest exports that Western Superman ever produced. You best come correct. Now look, everyone's conflated what is. Well, everyone's twisted what he said. That is obvious. Like that's clearly obvious. And the funniest thing is his biggest gripes. If you look at the BBC interview he had before he absconded, if you want to call it that, he was like talking about trust levels in the British press that were lower than Albania and stuff like that, and saying that all the misinformation and lies by the press and the twisting of people's words is something he'd had enough of. That was one of his main reasons for leaving, and also tax and stuff. If you look at that interview, and he's made some comments about like the changing landscape of the country, which is what old people will have seen more than we have, and I've seen it. But the fact is, he talked about his friend came over America and said, "Well, where are all the English people?" And it's like, and he should have known that the media, all they were going to do was just twist everything he said, which is what they've done. And you've got to be straight up about that. You can't just go, "Oh no, don't say that." It's like, look, he never said like, "Where's all the white people?" Because I tell you what, you can tell an English person can tell an English person, a British person can tell a British person. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can tell. If you can't, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, if you like Italians, Russians, Lithuanians, you can tell. It's just, especially the further east and further south in Europe you go, like there's some different white people. I explained to the girl I'm seeing out here, I was like, all right, I see white people. I go, right, English, German, Russian. It's like, how you know? I'm like, because you just know. Like, to your foreign ass, we's all honkies, but there is many different honk out there, and I am a honky spotter. Oh yes, I am. Look at me. I am honked. I am honk to honk. So a honk knows a honk, and it's easy, especially like, and just the way they dress, the way they swag around, the things that they do, the way they walk, and the way they look, and people from like the Balkans and shit look very different. And and Russians have got them heads and them eyes. You can always tell a Russian or a Ukrainian or a Lithuanian or a Bulgarian. You can just tell. They ain't like the British. They ain't like the English. The Welsh aren't like the English. The Scottish ain't like the English. So don't bunch us all together. Like, and I tell you this, London isn't it? It's a multi. This is the thing. They sort of they want multiculturalism. They embrace multiculturalism, as do I, to an extent. Because we only want the good bits, don't we? Let's face facts. Like, people only want the good bits of multiculturalism. No one wants the bad. Well, you're gonna have to accept both. You have to. If you like it, you have to accept both. Otherwise you want people to integrate more. Therefore, your multicultural sort of rhetoric changes a bit. It's like, well, we like the good bits, but can you stop being buggers and doing all that weird shit that you do? Like, you can't, it's all becomes very hypocritical and it just gets twisted. All right, and it becomes bullshit. It's just bullshit at this point. Multiculturalism, the way they talk about it, it's like, yeah, you just pick it and choosing. All cultures are beautiful. Well, no, they're not. All cultures are nuanced, and there are things that are great and things that are bad. Same as British culture, believe it or not. So it's not all bad. It's not all good. Goodness sake, as if you didn't understand how life works. And look, the fact is, London is over 40. It's like 42%, 43% foreign born. Okay, or born overseas. They're foreigners, all right. There's nothing wrong with being called a foreigner. It's fine. It's just like, I'm a foreigner here. Some girl the other day just came out with it. Farang. Just said it like that. Looked at me like, I was like, all right. This is fine. All right. Yeah, well observed. I'm foreign. Good for you. It's like someone just goes, "Yeah, you're a foreigner." I go, "Oh, well done. Well, good for you. Well, I'm glad you pointed that out. That was really clever of you. How did you know? Is it this? You can just tell if someone. And this is what I'm saying. Like there's many multicultural cities across the world, which you wouldn't say is like New York. I expect is pretty mixed, from what I understand. So you wouldn't call it just like a bona fide American city. Big international cities aren't like other places in countries. You can't. You couldn't go to you couldn't even go Bangkok and say this is exactly what Thailand's like, because there's a lot of different cultures there too. Even there, you know what I'm saying? There's mixtures. There are mixtures, my friends. This is what big cities are like. Big international cities. I'm not talking about a big city like Guangzhou in China, which is like 10 million people, and it's just for the Chinese, and it's just a big industrial, smouldering complex. Talk about international cities. Why don't you understand that? Why? And also, majority of people are probably not born in London, aren't even Londoners. Because often if you go out and you meet people, not in proper still London boy areas, but if you go, the amount of times I met people and say, "Oh, where are you born?" I say, "I was born in London." When I'm in London, they go, "Oh, wow, that's really unusual." I've heard that, and I haven't spent my whole life in London. Neither, half my life there. And it's like, oh, that's unusual. I was like, I know. So it's not even English, it's not even London. It's not even full of Londoners. There's probably more second generation immigrants born in London than there is next generation Londoners. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a fact. I don't know. And the thing is, you can sit on a bus. If you're on a bus in London, people talk more on buses than the underground. And you're hearing everyone talking. I always noticed it every day. I was like, the only sort of English voices you hear were school kids on their way to school. Probably because they're the loudest as well. Kids are obnoxious and horrible. But you wouldn't hear. You'd hear all kinds of foreign dialects. You're just there trying to work out, where are you from? Where's this from? Especially if they're African, and like some African countries have mad amount of dialects. I remember when at Ivory Coast, and I was like, "Oh, I know you speak French, but what's the local dialect?" And I said, "Oh, it's 60." I was like, "Fuck me!" So you have no idea. And did I have a problem with it? No, not really. No. Do I feel? But you look at old people, some old pearly queen sat there, 85, lived through the Blitz, and she must be wondering what the fuck is going on. It wasn't like this. When did all this happen? Where did all these people come from? That's just how it is. You shouldn't disrespect them for feeling a certain type of way. That's what kind of thinking is that? It's not like they're going around saying we should burn them all. I don't think that's what people are saying at all. And so it seems weird to say, "Oh, it's not an English city," because it's not. It's really not. There's all kinds of pockets of all different cultures, and there's loads of different types of people there, and people, and not just immigrants, people who come there, for temporary stays. All the French that come over to work. There's loads of French. What about all the all the people come from Australia on their 6-month visas to do the English thing, and they all just stay in London in a hostel. There's loads of them. They're white. They ain't bloody English, are they? What the fuck is wrong with people? You can just, and I'll tell you this. What some of the most surprising things you see. I never walk across Westminster Bridge, right? If I ever went across it, I was on a bus, and when I'm on a bus, I'm listening to music, and I'm in my own little world, trying to ignore all the little kids being obnoxious, the random nutter who's talking about stabbing Jesus, all that sort of stuff. And but one day I was in the West End, and I thought, I'm gonna walk all the way back to Camberwell. Fuck it. No. I walked across Westminster Bridge, and I was like, where the fuck am I? I was like, this is right outside the House of Parliament. It was like being in Sofia, and I've never been to Bulgaria, but I can imagine what that. I'm assuming they're all Bulgarians, Romanians, Hungarians. They had the flat caps on and the leather jackets, and they were playing accordions and shit, and doing these, card games, and the games with the cups and the balls, all on crates. Next minute I was expecting to see a dancing bear. And it was like, and there's people just going around dipping people's pockets like, and it was just the whole street. It's like, well, hang on, haven't they got regulations for busking street performers and also isn't like begging illegal? So what the fuck are all these people doing here outside the Houses of Parliament? I was like, this is mental. How are they all here? This is like one of the most heavily policed areas in the whole country, and all this it was mental. That was a couple of years ago. I haven't been back since. I was just walking down it, I was going, what the fuck is going on? And it was all just like Eastern Europeans. It was mad. I was like, what is this? This is weird. It was weird. There's nothing English about that. There's nothing English about loads of Bulgarians playing accordions, pickpocketing people. like, what are you mad? And they're going, oh, don't you dare say it's not English. It's like, yeah, have you seen what's going on? It's bad and shit. So, like, I don't know, people have problems with this sort of stuff. But what does everyone? But regardless of that, it's just a fact that it's majority. There's a huge majority of foreign nationals, and it's just a statement of fact. What's your problem? Let's just like have a look around. Do you think those like saying, oh, being British isn't about being born? Oh, no, yeah. But you walk across Westminster Bridge, and it looks like a gypsy convention in Eastern Europe, right? It's not it's not particularly English, and not one person there is identifying as British. It's like I'm going out with some friends, and I seen some boys in a park, and they were drinking cider, wearing tracksuits, and I said, I guarantee they're Lithuanian. And they were like, what? Why would you say that? I said, come. And I was like, excuse me, boys, are you Lithuanian? And they were like, yes, how do you know? I said, because you're always drinking in parks. You're always drinking cider in parks. That's how I know. Because they are. They are. Yeah. Often, so many times. Used to be on my way to work, like 8 in the morning, there'd be like, and this is near London Bridge, and there'd be a bunch of Lithuanians in this park near the hospital, just drinking cider at 8 in the morning, and they were Lithuanian. That's how I found out. I was like, where are you from? Lithuania. Okay. I was like, where are you from? Lithuania. Okay. There you go, my friends. That's right, Lithuanians drinking cider in parks. I don't care if that offends anyone. It's just something I observed, and it's real, it's true, and it happened, so bite me. But like, so it's no big deal to say like going, oh, there's a hell of a lot of foreigners here, because there is. And what? Well, what's your problem? But what is the problem? We've just identified. We've just recognizing something. Oh, that's a thing. It's like apparently you're not allowed to point out the truth no more. Just a statement of fact. Now, how you feel about it and your opinion on it is a different matter altogether. But you can't say that it's not true. You can't tell me that Lithuanians drinking cider in parks identify as being English, all right, and fully embrace English culture. Well, maybe the cider drinking bit they do, but the rest of it. But what have they done? So they've said, oh, John Cleese isn't alone in equating English with white. Sadly, that view is mainstream. It's like, look, no, it's not. And like, if you see majority of black people that you see in London or other cities, you would immediately assume they're British or English or Scottish or Welsh, whatever you want, depending on where you are. That is what you will assume. See a bunch of Indian boys, you go, they're probably English. Because we've been living together for a long fucking time. There has been no point in my life where there wasn't English black people and English Indian people and all sorts of others. That's a mainstream thing, alright? Okay, right, so... The actor's grumble about London reflects a wrong-headed view on immigration, unchanged since the days of empire. Oh, of course you're going to say that. His surname is Goodfellow, by the way. Some years ago, I opined that London was not really an English city anymore, is how John Cleese began to tweet on Wednesday. Since then, virtually all of my friends from abroad have confirmed my observation. When 8 long years ago he made a similar claim, he gave us the unabridged version. I'm not sure what's going on in Britain, he said, while appearing on an Australian TV programme. Let me say this, I don't know what's going on in London because London is no longer an English city, and that's how they got the Olympics. They said, we're the most cosmopolitan city on earth, but it doesn't feel English. Yeah. Where to start? Maybe with the most obvious point of them all. Cleese is fine with immigration if it's him moving. Oh yeah, it's like always do the thing of him moving. It's plausible that when he sat down, he left because he didn't want to be here no more. It's time to write this tweet. Cleese was in Nevis in the Caribbean. Having had enough of the England he cherishes so much, he announced last year he was planning to move there. The difference is obvious. He bemoans immigrants in London, but because of race and class, he's called an expat in the Caribbean. Yeah, he doesn't. Did he call himself that? Who called him that? Who defined him as an expat? Like, who defines expats? Like, who says that that's what they are? Did he say? Did he go there and say, "I'm an expat"? No. What is it? Now, Cleese claimed his comments are not about race, but back in Australia, he gave more evidence for this argument. I had a Californian friend come over 2 months ago, walk down the King's Road and say to me, "Well, where were all the English people?" Assuming they didn't ask every single person they sat down with where they were born, how did Cleese's Californian friend know none of them were English? Like I said, if you see a white person wearing a flat cap, a leather jacket, playing an accordion with a dancing bear next to him, I guarantee you that guy's not English, okay? Look, it's just a simple matter of... It's very straightforward. If you see someone in a bad tracksuit who's really tall, with a forehead like this, and eyes like this, a white guy, he's probably from Eastern Europe. He's probably Russian or Ukrainian. That's the way it goes. If you see someone talking really loud and obnoxiously with a very sharp haircut and a tight fucking puffer vest on the phone going, he's probably Italian. There's many ways to define and to tell who is an English or not. It's very easy. It's just have a look out there. Or do you think all honkies look the same? Which one is it? Because I'd like to know your answer. Just let me know. Let me know what you think about what you equate as being white. Now, Cleese claimed his comments are not about race, but back in Australia, he gave more evidence for his argument. I had a Californian friend, blah, 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 blah. You have to wonder, what does it mean for London not to be English? What does it mean to be an English city? To have a lot of English people, generally. Cleese gave us an idea in 2011. I love being down in Bath, he said, because it feels like the England that I grew up in. Who knows why Cleese feels at home there? Is it because the overwhelming majority of the population of that city is white British? No, just British. And English, motherfucker. But London, just like England, has always been constituted by global connections. Violent material wealth and labour extraction from the colonies helped finance the Industrial Revolution and brought money flowing into the capital. Oh, I see. Because of colonialism, it's always been an international city. All right. Okay, that makes perfect sense. London and parts of Britain have always been diverse. Irish and Jewish migrants in the 1800s and early 1900s were considered radicalised others. Yes, they were. People from colonies and former colonies who, after being educated on an English curriculum, came as citizens to work in the mother country, were met with racism. This is perhaps not the England Cleese had in mind, but it's the England that has long been. There was no English history, the academic Stuart Hall wrote, without the other history. Oh, well done. Yes, I don't think people are ignoring the fact that there was racism going on. What the fuck are you talking about? This history and what it means for England's sense of self is ill understood. Cleese defended his comments by claiming it's legitimate to prefer one culture to another, but there is no such thing as one static culture tied to one particular nation. And static culture. Well, yes, cultures do fluctuate and change. It depends on what you like, doesn't it? But you haven't really... There's no proof in your point about him equating to white. Because like I said, you assume because his friends said, well, where are all the English people? And they didn't stop everyone to ask them where they're from. Look, you can tell, all right? And if you can't tell who ain't English and who ain't, and who is, then I don't know who you are like, because you can just tell. No matter what colour they are, you can just tell by the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they act and behave. We all have some sort of shared things. Like, you could be a third generation Jamaican boy who has one of them fake yard accents, hanging out in Brixton and going, you're sweating me up, yeah, like talking like that, like all the time, trying to sound mad Jamaican, even though you've never been to Jamaica. You can even tell that dude's English just by the way they carry themselves. Look, it's straight up. That's how it is. It is. It's just like you just know English people. Come out here. Another example. Like this girl is saying, and she sort of always thinks of black people as being American, because you get a lot of I've seen a lot of black Americans here. The other day there was a black couple and they were English straight away, just by the way they were acting before they even opened their mouths. Go, they're English. If they're African, if they're American, none of that. Didn't think they're from the Caribbean. I was like, they're English. And then they started speaking up. There you go, because you can tell. If you can't, I don't know where you've been living. Then maybe you don't live in a very English area. I don't know. I don't fucking idea. You know, you can tell. I lived in a state that was predominantly Colombian or African, and it's like, and even like the whitest looking Colombians, you just know they're Colombians because of the way they carry themselves. Do you know what I mean? You just know. You bump into someone else who's English, you know. You just know. Like, that's how it is. You bump into white Americans, you know they're American before they open their mouths. Majority of the time. You just know. You can tell an Australian, you can tell a South African, a white South African. You just know. We know. We know. So enough with this trying to twist everything into some sort of race game, because people are getting very sick and tired of it. There's one way to smear it. Like, what he said is, he just said it's not an English city anymore. It's literally what he said. And that's not even his reason for leaving. Not his main reason. I don't think it's even one of his... It's definitely not his main reason. So it's like, chill the fuck out and let an old person have an opinion, because they've earned the right to have an opinion. I hate to break it to you, but youth aren't everything, okay? Being young isn't everything. It's very short-lived and very overrated.